don't understand when I do it this way, it gives me the wrong answer. So I know it's the wrong answer.
But I think my logic is right.
Yes. That is such a strong learning moment.
Yeah.
And I wish more people put themselves in that position where they could say, I genuinely believe what I've done here is logically consistent.
Yeah.
Not I feel it. It's like I really think the logic holds, but I can't see where the error is. That's a massive opportunity to learn something.
Yeah.
And that can happen. I mean, you don't have to be at university for that to happen. That can happen even when you work.
Yeah, very much so. And I think that was something that was strange for me when I did go work, is that like the answer, no one knows what the answer is. Yes. So it's like, and it's fun. Like you're like, okay, go to the back. Oh, that's the answer. Wonderful. 100%. I smashed it. Like that's not what it's like at work. And then it's like, okay, but like, how do I know that what I've done is right? And also relaying that to other stakeholders so that they resonate with your decision. Because obviously, like if you're pricing something, there has to be someone signing off that.
Yeah, you've got to convince them.
Exactly.
They mustn't be sitting there thinking, I really don't know that I trust what you've done here.
Yeah.
That idea of not knowing what the correct answer is, I think is also super important. Like how, especially when students are at university, they look at their lecturers and they think, so my lecturer knows everything.
I mean, I thought that about you, I must be honest.
No,
I think I still think about that.
I have to tell people this all the time, that lecturers are humans as well. Like,
yeah. And now that I am a lecturer, I'm like, yeah, please don't put me on any pedestal.
Absolutely not. No, it's terrible. It's too much pressure. Way too much pressure. But nevertheless, how does a lecturer justify that there's a certain way of doing something? There must be some logical basis for it.
Agreed.
And that's what the learning is. The learning is not, I'm going to learn this by rote. These are the notes that I got in lectures. I'll learn it by rote. And then I'll just regurgitate that in the exam. The objective really of learning is to see what that underlying logic must be.
Yeah.
Precisely so that when you're at work and you don't have the answer at the back of the book,
you have logic.
You've got the logic. Yeah. And that's what gives you your confidence.
Yeah.
And if, similar to what I said earlier, if you can't find that logical structure and people are pressuring, we want an answer on this, we want a price or something, to be able to say, listen, I can't give you a price in good faith.
Yes.
This price, the correct price here could be in a band from here to here. The one is completely loss-making and the one is we're going to have no clients. No one's going to buy this product.
Yeah.
So I just, there's not enough here. We don't have enough information to be more specific. This.
Yeah.
I think being able to distinguish those circumstances is really useful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much so. Very much so. I think one of the last questions I would like to ask you, and I think it probably touches on a lot of what you said, is if you were a matric coming into a first year, not necessarily actuarial course, but just doing stats, right? That's obviously one of the exemption papers and it links to a number of the other ones. How would you sort of advise them to go about building statistical proficiency? I mean, that's a massive question. Yeah. And I think you have touched on logic, curiosity, etc.
Yeah.
But it's also one of the first year subjects. I mean, I remember for myself being like, if I'm going to fail this year, it's because I'm going to fail stats.
Yes.
So how would you sort of, not counter that, but, give a level of encouragement?
So I think the first thing is, it will be quite daunting. Pretty much everyone's first exposure to statistics is quite daunting.
Yes, it makes me cry.
Yes, it makes everyone cry. It's a better light.
Did it still make you cry? Have you got over the tears?
I cry on the inside.
Okay.
So it happens. I think it's important to recognize it will be a bit challenging in the beginning.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what first wraps people up is they start to lose a bit of confidence. They come out of matric and they've done exceptionally.
Yeah, they smashed it.
Usually in all of their subjects. Another thing which amazes me, a lot of the students that I teach, they're not just good academically. They're
high achievers across the board.
Everything. They've done like a grade 12 music exam, or they've been to SA Champs or whatever, sports or something.
Yeah.
So they really do understand what is necessary to achieve.
Yes. And to put in the time and work hard.
Work hard with that and with a goal and exactly. And then they start studying, say, something like statistics and they struggle.
Yeah.
And it's a very uncomfortable feeling. No one enjoys it. No one's going to sit there and say, I really am enjoying getting 30%. Yes. And not having any idea why these two questions that look exactly the same to me are completely different.
Yeah.
So it's important to be realistic. That is going to happen. But at the same time, it's brilliant. It's an excellent opportunity to get your hands dirty and get uncomfortable and go and ask about where you're struggling.
Yeah.
The biggest mistake I think you can make coming out of school, and it's hard, is to overwhelm our own ego. It's very difficult because at school we've done well. Oh, I've got distinctions for maths and AP maths and everything. I'm not going to go and ask why I'm struggling to do a particular problem in statistics.
Yeah.
So I most of my suggestions on how, and just out of matric, early first years should approach their studies will not be concrete things. It's the most frustrating advice you can get from anyone. I remember you mentioned running earlier. I asked someone, how do I run faster? And the best response they give me is, move your legs faster. Like I know
it's not wrong, but it's not helpful.
But it's how do I action that?
Yeah.
It's the same thing, unfortunately, with advice that I would give is, you will be uncomfortable. You must embrace that. Don't shy away from it. It's not going to help you at all to think, well, I'll just leave that part of the stats alone, and maybe it's not important. Maybe I'll get by on the rest. It's not going to work. Even if it wasn't important, the biggest problem is you're going to absolutely destroy your confidence in your own ability.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest challenge, maybe even with following the actuarial education part as a whole.
Yeah.
I mean, you would know better, and friends of yours. It's quite stressful. There's a lot of months along the route where you're thinking, is this for me? Have I reached the upper level of what I can do?
Yeah.
I don't believe in any of that. I don't think anyone reaches a ceiling. You only reach the ceiling when you've decided, I don't want to do any more of this. Yeah, so my advice would be, it'll be difficult. Ask questions.
Yeah.
Get your hands dirty. Make mistakes.
Yeah.
You have to make mistakes. No one's expecting you to get everything right all the time.
Yeah.
And especially at university, the stakes are so low relative. I mean, it's not completely low, but relative to when you're working one day.
100%.
If you make a big mistake there, you're going to feel terrible.
Yeah.
If the company loses 100 million, you're going to be like, oh, that was my area. Whereas at university, you fail a test. It's not the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Very much so. Very much so.
Yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting part. I think what's difficult is when you see people get discouraged.
Yeah, and I think it is also when you're building proficiency, I think there is always an element of discouragement because there is an uphill aspect to it, where you're kind of like, am I actually moving uphill, or am I kind of staying in the same place, or am I actually like regressing?
Floundering.
Yeah,
yes.
And should I cut my losses now? Yeah. And I think that's something that maybe has to be assessed on a personal level, because I think there are aspects maybe sometimes where someone should move or consider a different road.
How much do you think is affected by expectations?
Sure, that's the question. I think for me, I know that expectations, especially the expectations that I have of myself, was particularly difficult. I think, I had a very strong matric, and I think I was maybe falsely told that, university would be a breeze.
Yes.
So when I came in and, you're getting 60% and sometimes not even,
yes.
the 60%, I mean, I'm being kind here. Some of my first year marks. But
I failed a third year exam. Failed the exam.
Sure. And yeah, you sort of think to yourself, I'm not supposed to be this. Yeah. And if I am this, then maybe my ability to understand my own capability is wrong. Yeah. So maybe I've got this whole thing wrong. Yes. So maybe I should just, jump out of this now, abandon ship and
so
maybe...
It's a lot about confidence. Yeah. It is a lot about confidence.
But I think staying the course, and I know that that's not for everyone, but that also builds confidence. As soon as you do start passing things, or even as small as you start getting questions right in time.
Yes.
And it's not taking as long, or like you make the odd connection, or you're able to explain something to a mate or whatever. Like those are small victories, and I think it's something that I always encourage my students is to celebrate the small victories.
Yes, definitely.
And
that's going to happen. There's no reason why that's going to stop happening.
No, exactly.
It becomes self-fulfilling. It can start with just a couple of things. I don't know if you've had this experience with students. You sometimes notice a very quiet student and you encourage them to ask one or two questions and it snowballs.
Yeah.
Suddenly they are flooding you with questions because I think they've learned that they're not staying the course on their own.
Yeah.
It really helps if you're working with other people and especially interacting with lecturers. I would get rid of the idea that your lecturers are above reproach.
No.
Anyone can make
I agree.
Anyone can make a mistake.
I agree. And I think something I say to especially my first years, I say to them, like, I have a vested interest in you succeeding. Like, your success is my success as a lecturer. And I think that's something they don't necessarily understand, because in the education space, it is so rewarding to see your students do well, because that's why you're there, right?
Virtually, basically, every single student I've taught has done much better than anything I could ever imagine. So it's fantastic. That's another question would be, why not go and work as an actuary? I could ask you the same question.
Yeah.
How did you not stay in corporate? And
Yeah.
there's something else that's fulfilling about seeing other people succeed, especially with things that they're struggling with. There's a deep fulfillment.
I think it depends how you quantify meaning to yourself. And I think for me, something, especially as I was sort of in my mid-20s, I realized that money was never going to compensate you for the meaning. And then when you realize that meaning is what will keep you going, then it's like, okay, well, then go pursue what's meaningful. And I haven't looked back since then.
Sure,
It's
that's
difficult.
good. I wouldn't realize I had such an impact.
Yeah, well, it was all you. It was all you. But I think on that note, I want to thank you so much for being willing to be on the podcast and just sort of adding so much value. As I said, when I told my younger brother that you were going to be on the podcast, he was like, Marks, that is going to be the best podcast. And
I'm still in.
I actually did like a little happy dance when I saw your email. I was like, yes, Mark's going to be on my podcast. So thank you so much.
No, thank you very much. And I think this is an excellent idea.
Thank you.
And I think a lot of people will gain a great deal from perspectives of people who've walked the path.
Yes. I hope so. So on that note, thank you. And to our listeners, thank you for listening, and see you on the next episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave a review on your preferred streaming platform. If you'd like to interact with us more or add questions or topics to our pool of ideas, please follow our Instagram page at AS4Actuary or email us on asforactuary@gmail.com. Thank you for listening. Take care.